Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan John joining you for this edition of Nate at 8. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it, as always. Coming up on this edition of Nate at 8, we are tracking this week really a lot of what we saw for this weekend. So, yes, this pleasant weather just looks to continue going throughout much of the week. We are not seeing it ramp up with temperatures, or ramp up in humidity, or ramp up in rain chances. Not going to occur this week. It's more of a gradual process that we'll see temperatures, humidity, and rain chances pick up as we go through the week. So that being said, looks mainly dry throughout this week. Mostly seasonable temperatures. So highs mid-lower 80s, lows mid-lower 60s. We likely don't stray too far from that here throughout this week. The humidity also remaining more tolerable going into the weekend. By Sunday into Monday is when the story can start to change. But of course, we'll further break down all of this coming up for this edition of Nate at 8. So without further ado, let's jump into things, shall we? Again, thanks so much for joining me on this Monday evening. So starting off with the temperatures and the humidity. Well, for today, those highs made it just into the 80s. Now we're cooling into the 70s, coming off of lows that did fall back into the 50s again for this morning. We've had quite a series of cool mornings here as of recent. In fact, this morning marked 4 mornings in a row with these low temperatures into the 50s, and a far cry from what we had to wrap up the month of July, right? A lot of those lows were 70 plus, and what a stark contrast, and certainly was noticeable cool down here for the beginning of August. But this stretch of 4 days in a row is somewhat of significance. You know, it's not record breaking, but it has been some time since we dealt with that long of a stretch of lows below 60 degrees. In fact, we have to go back 2 months. We have to go back to the beginning of June and end of May. That stretch actually lasted 17 days, but that was the last time we had 4 or more days where lows were below 60 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. And of course, that stretched a lot longer than 4 days, but that was the last stretch where we had at least 4 or more days. That was 17 in a row, May 18th through June 3rd. So again, about 2 months ago, even you could consider it a little over 2 months ago. That's when we had this last stretch, and that was 17 days in a row. So it's been some time, right, since we had this long. We've seen it at times for a day or two primarily, but 4 days in a row, that has been the first in about 2 months for us here in the Ohio Valley. Now, as we look ahead, one thing that will be ending now likely for the rest of this week are those series of cool mornings. So we do not look to get back in the 50s now for the remainder of this week. We'll look to get into the 60s. Now, that being said, mid-lower 60s, it's mild, but that's not a real warm night, right? We don't have those warm, muggy nights that we saw with those low 70 plus. We're not seeing that return, but more mild, more seasonable temperatures. A lot of mid to lower 60s is what we're going to see from this point on. Yes, even starting tomorrow morning, likely continuing into the weekend. So not as cool for these mornings now. For the remainder of the week, it's mild. I wouldn't say these are warm nights, but they're more mild nights that we'll have in place, likely continuing at this point going through the weekend. Yes, this does coincide with an increase in the humidity, but notice we don't ramp up to anything unbearable or really anything uncomfortable, at least going into Saturday. I do think by Sunday is when we can get back into that range of uncomfortable humidity levels. But going through Saturday, it's more tolerable, I think is a good way to put it. It's more manageable for a lot of that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and still pleasant for a lot of tomorrow and into Wednesday. So again, the humidity, not excessive. The temperatures, they don't look excessive. That's going to be the theme as we go into the weekend. More tolerable humidity levels, more seasonable temperatures, so nothing excessively hot, excessively humid. And during this stretch, yes, in terms of our rain chances, a lot of this is likely dry. So again, just a pleasant stretch of weather going into this weekend. It's doubtful that we're picking up any rain, but we do have that slight chance returning by Wednesday that will carry over into the weekend. Our next really, at least better chance for some showers and thunderstorms is likely more Sunday and into Monday. So up until that point, it's doubtful, right? We got to throw in a slight chance. It does look like a little better odds for the west of us. But I think there's great odds that we're staying dry from now until we get into Sunday, at least, if not longer, right? It's not likely at that point, but it is possible to see little better odds to spot a shower and thunderstorm Sunday and into Monday. So that being said, as we look ahead here, we already have, if we include today, 4 days in a row with no precipitation, nothing measured, not even a trace, but specifically nothing measured. The Wheeling and Ohio County Airport today marked 4 days in a row. So Tuesday, 5, Wednesday, 6, Thursday, 7. So 7. If we include Friday, 8, Saturday, 9, we can string together here at least a week, if not longer, without any measurable precipitation at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. Now, it has been even longer. So we just talked about how it had been 2 months. So we have this series of cool mornings. But if we're talking a week or more of no measurable precipitation this year, again, I think we got great odds. We're already on 4 days. We got great odds. We can get this to 7, if not more, throughout this week, right? There's no high rain threat in sight through this weekend. So we can string together 7 or more, 7+ days. Again, this could continue through this weekend. We can get over 10 days without any measurable precipitation at the Wheeling and Ohio County Airport. The last time we had this was in April. So we've got a good chance to deal with the longest stretch of no measurable precipitation at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, the longest stretch here of dry weather since April, since we have to go back to April for the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. So yeah, certainly noticeable dry stretch that we're in right now. That is for sure. And again, this could be the longest since April, and we'll see how many days we string together. This could be the longest that we've had even for the year. It's possible. There's no guarantee to spot any showers, thunderstorms, even Sunday into Monday. The chance increases, but still no guarantee. So we can string together quite a few days and possibly even get this to 10 plus. It is possible as we do look ahead into the weekend. So it's another interesting statistic to note, and we've discussed this a lot. I feel like as of recent, especially a lot of farmers I know have been asking, this dry weather, when we get a nice dry stretch, get out and bale some hay, and this is finally it. We finally have this dry stretch of weather returning, likely that will be with us for a good chance for a week, if not longer, only a slight chance at most as we go into the weekend. And then by Sunday, it's possible, a little better odds, but certainly not likely, even as we get into Sunday and into Monday. But at that point, yes, the chance for showers and thunderstorms will start to increase a bit more at that point. Again, a shower thunderstorm possible Sunday, and little better odds for those showers and thunderstorms early next week. Now, I do anticipate by the time we get towards the middle of next week, I think there is better and better odds to see showers and thunderstorms. So it's not indefinite, I don't think, in terms of this dry stretch. But can we see this continue through the weekend? Yes, that is certainly possible. At that point, we're over 10 days in a row. So again, we already had 4 now, and Tuesday will include 5. So we get up to 7 on Thursday, 8 on Friday. There's our 10 Sunday. So we can get up to 10, if not longer, days. So, no guarantee into early next week. But I do think that as we get closer to the middle of next week, I think there's better odds for those showers and thunderstorms returning for our area. So next week, yes, I don't think we'll continue this dry stretch into, going through next week. I think next week is going to end it. I think next week can feature a more unsettled pattern, a more humid pattern, a warmer pattern with respect to this week. But at least this pleasant weather will continue this week before I do think that it does turn, generally very warm, humid, more wet next week. So I think that it is a bit of a flip in this pattern for next week, but at least for this week, we feature, a lot, not exact copy, right? Ultimately warmer than this past weekend, but good amount of sunshine, humidity, not terrible, right? More tolerable, not excessively hot or humid, and mainly dry. So, this is a pleasant stretch of weather that we'll have in place as we go into the weekend. Catch up on comments now. Austin, good evening. Today was a warm day. Felt good to be outside. Sure did. But I wish the wind would calm down so I can try and enjoy an afternoon of grilling. Been noticing some grass turning brown, Austin says. And yeah, we'll see likely a lot more of that with this dry stretch in place. More of that grass getting brown. The wind speeds should be about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Shouldn't be real breezy for tomorrow. So hopefully you'll get a chance to tomorrow, Austin. Amazed at how beautiful the moon is out. Have to check it out, Austin. Saying amazed at how beautiful the moon is out. Have to go out and check it out after this. And everyone as well. We'll have to go check out the moon. Austin saying looking beautiful this evening. Right on. We'll have to go check it out. But yeah, this weather as well. They're certainly looking beautiful as we go through this weekend. And again, slight chance, it's doubtful, and mainly, if not completely dry conditions from now all the way into the weekend. The next better odds for showers and thunderstorms is likely next week. Even Monday doesn't look like a high odd day. I think by the middle of next week, it does start to turn more likely for those showers and thunderstorms. And next week in general looks more likely for rain than this week. But here near term, we just string together here good odds for at least a week, if not longer, of dry conditions and more seasonable, more manageable humidity level, more seasonable temperatures and more manageable humidity levels. Not too shabby, huh? Not too shabby of a pattern, that's for sure. Not too shabby for this week. It's looking awfully nice as we go into the weekend. Thanks so much for joining me for this edition of Nate at 8. I appreciate it as always. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and got to enjoy this weather. And the good news is, again, we get to enjoy more beautiful weather even as we extend into this weekend. Going to be a nice stretch of weather. Good, certainly stretch of weather to get out and enjoy the outdoors. Thanks so much for joining me. You can catch me coming up News 9 at 10 on Fox Time, News 9 tonight at 11 for the latest, and as always, for the next edition of Nate at 8 coming up tomorrow evening around 8 o'clock. So until then, I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and I'll see you on the next edition of Nate at 8.